Early on the morning of December 4, 2024, a man named Brian Thompson was walking to a hotel in Midtown Manhattan. He was the CEO of United Healthcare, the largest health insurance company in America, a company that covers around 49 million people. On the sidewalk outside, he was shot and killed. The killing itself led the news for about a day. But what happened after it led the news for a month. When the police recovered the shell casings, they found 3 words scratched onto them by hand: deny, defend, depose. And within a week, a 14-year-old book about how insurance companies avoid paying claims climbed all the way to number 2 on Amazon. People recognized those words. Then the polling came in. Among Americans under 45, more people had a favorable view of the man charged with the killing than the man who had been killed. A fund for his legal defense pulled in close to $1 million from 27,000 complete strangers. Now, you don't get a reaction like that to a murder. You get a reaction like that to a system. Because people were not really reacting to the shooter at all. They were reacting to the insurance company, to the denials, and the bills they couldn't pay even when they were insured. 100 million Americans looked at a killing on New York sidewalk and somehow saw their own healthcare in it. So, how did we get here? How does the richest country in the world build a healthcare system so hated that when the head of its biggest insurer is shot dead in the street, millions of people quietly take the side of the one who killed him? Everybody calls American healthcare broken. But maybe that's the wrong word. What if it's doing exactly what it was built to do? For most Americans, healthcare comes from one place: your job. And that arrangement, the thing that entire system is built on top of, was never anyone's plan. It started as an accident in middle of the war. During World War II, the government froze wages, so companies couldn't compete for workers by paying more. The freeze left one loophole: benefits, like health insurance, did not count as wages. Companies that couldn't legally hand you a bigger paycheck started handing you health coverage instead. And once the IRS made those benefits tax-free, the deal was locked in. In about 10 years, coverage jumped from about 12 million Americans to over 76 million. Not because anyone decided it was a good idea, but because it was the only legal way left to give someone a raise. And that loophole never closed. It's still in the tax code today. And now it's one of the biggest tax benefits in the entire federal budget. Bigger than the mortgage deduction, by the way. It costs the government around $250 billion a year. More than we spend on the entire Department of Education. $250 billion on a workaround from 1943. So, the foundation of the whole thing is an accident. And for the 80 years since, every time someone has tried to replace that accident with a system designed on purpose, it's been killed. Almost always the same way. Harry Truman tried first in 1945. Simple national health insurance, with about 60% of the country behind him. So the doctors' lobby set out to destroy it, and in the process, more or less, invented the modern attack advertising. They hired the first real political consulting firm in America, spent more on the fight than anyone ever had, and gave the idea a name built to scare people: socialized medicine. They even pinned a quote from Lenin that socialized medicine was the key to building a socialist state. Lenin never said it. They made it up, and it worked. Truman's plan died. Then they ran it again. In the 60s, when an early version of Medicare came up, the same lobby mailed out a record for the people to play at home and get angry to. It was called Ronald Reagan Speaks Out Against Socialized Medicine. And it opens, naturally, with another invented quote, this one pinned on the socialist who also never said it. that bill stalled too. But the record worked so well that the man who recorded it wrote that exact message all the way to the White House. Ronald Reagan's political career basically began as insurance industry ad. Reform did win though, exactly once. In 1965, Medicare finally passed. And within a few years, nearly every senior in America had coverage that would never be cancelled. So, it's possible. The system can change. But Medicare only covered the old and the poor. Everyone else stayed stuck in that accident from 1943. And the industry walked away from all of it with one lesson. Stop trying to block the government from outside and start quietly telling it what to build from the inside, which is exactly how we end up in that room. Richard Nixon taped nearly every conversation in his Oval Office. The same tapes caught something other than Watergate, a short exchange from 1971 about a new kind of for-profit health plan, the model that would become the HMO. Nixon's top aide is explaining to him why it's such a good business, and he tells the president all the incentives are toward less medical care, because the less care they give, the more money they make. And Nixon says, fine, not bad. The pitch wasn't that this would make anyone healthier. It was that you make more money the less care you give. And the very next day, the president went out and sold the same plan to the public with the words prevention and preventive care. 2 years later, he signed it into law. So, is American healthcare broken? A broken thing that fails at what it's meant to do. This one was told, to its face, exactly what it would do. Make money by withholding care. And it said, great, build that. It was never broken. It's been doing exactly what it was built to do. The one question left is how well it works now, 50 years later, with everything it's been learned since. Americans spend about twice as much on healthcare as people in other wealthy countries. And the usual explanation is simple. We must use twice as much we can. We are sicker, we run more tests, and we sit in more hospital beds. It's a tidy story, and it's damn wrong. The data points the other way. Americans go to the doctor less often than people in Germany or Netherlands, and we spend fewer nights in the hospital beds. We don't use more care than rest of the rich world. We just pay wildly more for every piece of it. A hospital can bill you almost $8,000 for a cardiac stress test, the kind of thing Medicare pays about $554 for. The same test in the same building, because the price was never tied to what the thing cost. It's tied to what they can get away with. But overcharging you is the polite part of the business. The real money, the part the whole country was reacting to back in December, isn't in what they charge you. It's in what they refuse to pay. Take United Healthcare, the company at the center of all of this. It's not just an insurance company anymore. Its parent owns more doctors than any other company in America. Tens of thousands of them. It owns the company that processes the medical claims of roughly 1 in 3 people in the country. It's the referee and half of the players on the field at the same time. In late 2024, Senate investigation went digging through more than 280,000 pages of internal documents. Their conclusion: the insurers were intentionally denying people care to boost profits. Not as a mistake, intentionally. At United Healthcare, denials for the care people need right after a hospital stay, rehab, nursing facilities had more than doubled in 3 years. In one category, they had gone up 9-fold. A denial rate doesn't go up 9-fold by accident. So what changed? They automated it. United Healthcare started running these decisions through an algorithm. A piece of software that looks at a sick person and predicts that precise day their recovery should be finished. The day the company can stop paying. There's a lawsuit right now alleging this algorithm is wrong about 90% of the time. 90%. Meaning, when people appeal, 9 out of 10 of those denials get overturned. And inside the company, the algorithm wasn't a suggestion. Employees were told to keep the patients within 1% of whatever number it split out. Let someone stay in rehab a few extra days, even if their own doctor said they needed it, and you could be fired. There's an internal memo telling staff in capital letters, do not guide providers. Don't help the doctors get the care approved. And then in 2022, the company started building a second piece of software to predict which denials people were most likely to appeal and win. So the company could tell in advance which denials it could get away with. It's not just them. At Cigna, internal records showed doctors rejecting claims at a rate of around 1 in every 1.2 seconds. One medical director turned down 60,000 claims in a single month. The way a former Cigna doctor described the process, we literally click and submit. And all of it, the algorithms, the target, the speed, rests on a single number. Of every claim that gets denied in this country, the share that people appeal is about 1/10 of 1%. That's the whole bet. The entire machine is built on the near certainty that you won't push back. Gene Loken was 91 years old living in Wisconsin. In the spring of 2020, he fell at home and broke his leg and his ankle. His doctors sent him to a nursing facility for physical therapy. Exactly what that injury at that age requires. United Healthcare paid for 19 days. And on the 20th day, they cut him off. More rehab, they said, was not medically necessary. His family appealed. And in turning down that appeal, the company spelled out its reasoning. Gene Loken, they wrote, had no acute medical issues because he was self-feeding and required minimal help for hygiene and grooming. He would feed himself, so they stopped paying. His family kept him in the facility anyway because he needed it. And they paid the bills themselves, $12,000 to $14,000 a month for almost a year. Gene Loken died in July of 2023. And just a year after the company decided he was finished recovering. His family's name now sits on the top of class action lawsuit against United Health. It's in discovery right now, which means that this spring the company had to hand over its internal records, the performance reviews, the algorithm review board, the names of medical doctors who signed those denials. Whatever in those files is coming. It doesn't always end the way it ended for Gene. There's a doctor named Nick Van Terheyden, whose own insurance refused to cover a routine blood test his physician had ordered for him. He knew it was justified, so he appealed. An independent reviewer looked at it, and the denial was reversed. He won. The machine can be beaten. It's just built so that almost no one tries. But Gene Loken's family could afford to pay out of the pocket. Most people can't. So, what happens when the bills land and you don't have it? What happens is the debt becomes yours. And in this country, it has teeth. Fall behind on a hospital bill, and about 1 in 5 hospitals will refuse to see you for anything but an emergency. The place that was supposed to heal you, turning you away because you couldn't pay the last time it did. About 100 million Americans are carrying medical debt. Insurance is no shield against it. Close to 1/3 of the people who have coverage are carrying it too. Medical bills are a leading cause of bankruptcy in this country. And we are the only wealthy nation on earth where that's true. And none of it lands evenly. Black Americans are about 50% more likely to be carrying medical debt than white Americans. Black mothers die in childbirth at roughly 3 times the rate of white mothers and 4 to 5 times the rate of mothers in any other rich country. The machine takes from everyone. It just takes the most from the people it's already taken from. For most of this century, that debt did its damage in the one place that quietly runs your whole financial life, your credit report. And in 2024, the government finally tried to do something about it. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau wrote a rule that would have wiped medical debt off credit reports entirely, $49 billion of it, off the reports of 15 million people. Their scores would jump. They would qualify for mortgages they have been shut out of. And a hospital bill could no longer be used to decide whether you got a loan or not. The agency finalized the rule in January of 2025. The same day they finalized it, the industry sued to kill it. 13 days later, the administration changed. And then the agency that wrote the rule, the one that had spent months defending it in court, switched sides. It joined the lawsuit against its own rule. Only ones left defending it were a couple of small legal aid groups. And they lost. The rule was struck down that summer, and the $49 billion stayed exactly where it was. So the agency built it to protect people, reverse itself to keep the debt on the books of 15 million of them. Why? Why does it go this way every single time? The boring answer is lobbying. The drug and health industry has been the biggest lobbying spend in Washington for 25 years in running, and the insurers pour in hundreds of millions more on top of that. But the real tell isn't how much it is. It's who takes it. The money flows to both parties. And in the last election cycle, the single biggest receipt of the health insurance lobby's money wasn't a Republican at all. It was Catherine Clark, the number 2 Democrat in the House. A man named Wendell Potter knows exactly how that works. He used to run it. 20 years at Cigna, eventually a vice president, building the campaigns that kept all of this looking reasonable. Then he walked away. And now he says the same thing that tape from the 1971 said. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly the way it was designed to. Avoid paying for care, protect the profit. So that's the machine. Built on purpose, automated, and paid for on both sides of the aisle. Which leaves one question that matters if you are the person holding the denial letter. Is there anything one person can do against a machine like this? More than you had think. You are not going to bring this industry down from your couch. But remember that number. The only 0.2% of denials ever get appealed. That's the soft spot. The whole machine runs on the assumption that you will give up. So don't give up. There are 3 things you can do this week. First, pull your credit report. If there's a medical debt on it under $500 or any medical debt you have already paid off, it's not supposed to be there. The credit bureaus agreed to drop them both. Dispute it and it comes off. Second, if you have got a hospital bill, ask for the itemized version. By law, they have to give it to you. The vague lump sum bill is where the padding hides, the absurd markups, the charges for the things that never happened. Make them show you every single line and challenge the ones that don't add up. Third, and the most important, if a claim gets denied, appeal it. Always. Remember the doctor? Nick Van Hayden denied a routine test, appealed, and won. That's not a fluke. When people fight a denial, they win a huge share of the time because most of those denials were never sold to begin with. Be the exception. and you are not doing it alone. The class action with Jen Loken's name on it is forcing United Healthcare to open its internal files this spring. Federal regulators have its whole empire under investigation. The fight is already moving, and the system has been bent before. It bent in 1965 when Medicare took coverage for seniors from a coin flip to near universal in 3 years. And it bent again in 2022 when Congress finally let Medicare negotiate drug prices. The first 10 of those prices took effect this year, and they came down between 38 to 79%. Drugs that millions of people take, cheaper overnight because the government decided to act. It can be done. It's been done right now. And one last thing. Because the noise around all of this will try to sort you onto a team. This was never really left versus right. Both sides take the industry's money. The single biggest receipt last year was a top Democrat. The real divide isn't between the parties. It's between an industry that's been organized since 1949 and rest of us who never have been. Brian Thompson was 50 years old. He grew up in a town of 1200 in Iowa, where his father worked at the grain elevator. He was the valedictorian of his high school. He spent 20 years at United Healthcare, working his way to the top. He had a wife and 2 sons. On the morning of December 4th, he was walking to an investor meeting when he was shot from behind on a Manhattan sidewalk. The man charged with killing him has pleaded not guilty. The case is still moving through the courts. But the hundreds of thousands of people who turned his death into a folk story were not really reacting to him. Most of them didn't know any of this. They never read the Senate report or heard of the tape from 1971 or learned Jen Loken's name or that agency built to wipe out 15 million people's medical debt, switch sides and help it on their records instead. They didn't know the receipts. They had just spent their lives inside what the receipts describe. Standing in a pharmacy doing math, opening a bill that couldn't read, sitting on a hold while a stranger with a script decided what their body was worth. So, when they saw the words scratched on those casings, deny, defend, depose, they were not reading a manifesto. They were reading their own paperwork. It wasn't bloodlust, it was recognition. A whole country looking at the thing it lives inside and realizing, a lot of them for the first time, that none of it was an accident. That it was built this way, on purpose, over 80 years. Maintained by the most money in Washington and defended in the end by the very agency that was supposed to police it. You can't undo 80 years in one video, but you can stop being confused about why it works the way it does. You can stop calling it broken. Because the moment you see it, that it was built and paid for and kept running by people who profit from every number, is the moment it stops being a tragedy you are trapped inside and starts being something you can fight. That's where it starts. If this changed how you see American healthcare actually is, subscribe. I dig into the systems around you were built on purpose every week. I'll see you in the next one.